Today, I want to welcome Bobby Burrell. He is a lifelong collector, and he's known as an expert in hockey cards and pretty much all things collectibles with a connection to Canada. He's the author of the Vintage Hockey Card and Collectible Price Guide and is a contributor to several hobby content providers. Welcome, Bobby.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate being here. It's fun.
I love bringing on experts, people who, even if they don't consider themselves experts, people that have proven that they've got a deep history and a deep background and deep knowledge within the hobby community. And you are definitely one of those individuals. So I'm glad that we're getting a chance to talk a little bit today.
Well, that's good because I really enjoy sharing with people. It helps the hobby going forward. And I think a lot of people are mistaken by the information I give you is just to fortify your journey too. And it's along with my journey as well.
Yeah, we're all on this journey together. And if anything, has been proven time and time again, it's that there is so much to this hobby that we've got. We've got over 100 years worth of cards that are available to us, and just as much in most of the collectible categories as well. And there's never something, I guess there's never an end to the knowledge that can come and the knowledge that's out there to be learned. And so I love that, the history of the hobby as well. So I love to, when we get a chance to bring on somebody and connect with somebody who's got that passion for the history of the hobby as well, and also has a passion for education and helping bring other people along and get other people up to speed. So I appreciate you being here today.
No, that's great. Let's get to it.
When did you start collecting cards?
The first pack I opened was 1969-70, and it was hockey. I live in Toronto, Canada, so hockey was everything. I opened that pack, but the one I really most remember was the next year or two after. That's when the passion really hit. We all we have only so much money back then. Like, honestly, it's not like today every kid gets whatever they want. And back then, you got a quarter if you're lucky. You buy a 10-cent pack and you're good to go. And then you have some money left over for some gumballs or a bag of chips or something like that, because you can't have everything. And you don't always just want cards, because I had a sweet tooth. It was tough. So, going forward, it was really difficult. So that was where I basically started, and I kept going, but I also got into other collectibles as well. So comics came, toys from the 70s, because that 60s, 70s era, we always collect our nostalgic years that we were, prepubescent time period. Because usually puberty is a dividing time where people stop collecting completely or kind of branch off from it a little bit, and that's sort of the dividing line. So we all have that memory really from about 8 years old to about 14 years old. Those are really prime years for us.
You started with hockey, you mentioned, when you were in that prime collecting world and you had branched off into some other collectibles too, did you also branch off into other sports?
No, I really didn't. Well, yes, I have to say, because in 1973, I had to go to this special store because usually in Canada, every corner house was almost a variety store. It was kind of crazy. You'd open a variety store if you had a nice corner house or something like that. So it was very difficult. Not everybody carried like this would carry. Most would carry hockey, but some might carry another, maybe baseball or whatever. But this one place I had to go to specially was up the street and around the corner. And they had this whole metal wire rack full of all the different non-sports and other sports. It was just like, wow. So the first pack, I was looking over the packs. You only have so much money again. So I said, and I picked the wacky packages. I opened it up and I seen covered goyle and I just went, wow, what is this? And I was on a wacky pack trend for at least a couple of years there. So it was fun. But I branched off a little bit.
Did you ever take a break from collecting, or were you pretty consistent throughout, that teen years and 20s and things like that?
Sure. I kind of stopped around. I never really stopped. The interest was always there. Did I always go to a show? Did I always go? No, there's times, I started driving motorcycles and, at dates, girlfriends, trips that we would go on with our motorcycles. And, those were the fun times. And you kind of put the hobby in the back drawer at that time. But you always kind of were interested in things as you went along. So there was times that I would go to an old antique store. Oh, wow, look at that. Great. Hang on, Harvey. I got to get that game. Or I started getting into toy games, and Rock'em Sock'em Robots, one of my very favorite, because I had that as a kid. I bought it again later on. And and I still have that. I have a lot of those games put away, but I always enjoyed plastic toy games for some reason. Why plastic? I have no idea. Just kind of neat.
So at what point did your kind of full passion come back for collecting and for cards?
Well, I'd have to say in the full passion, probably 95.
Okay.
The full passion came back, because we established ourselves in a point in our life where we're making enough money that we have a little excess and what have you. And I was doing well in corporate coffee sales. So I was just going, hey, okay. I was looking on eBay. I said, there's a nice unopened 74 hockey pack. My God, $150 US. Buy it now. Like, I was just, from there, I never stopped. But then I started to realize, I was collecting packs and stuff, and we didn't know some of the wrappers. And it really got into a point that I just said, I got to look into this, because is this a 65 or 67 wrapper? I said this before, but those things intrigue you. And if you don't know, how are you going to collect? What if I come across a pack? Which one is it? And there's a difference in rookies. So there'd be a big difference in price. So I went down this path that I never thought I would. Like I said, it was osmosis, just getting into it. I just kept going, and I really never stopped. And in 2003, I put out, because I was into wax packs, and I put out the Vintage Hockey Collector's Price Guide. It was just a rudimentary book on, showing the packs, the wrappers, the boxes, because I really like point of sale items. So me and my friend Roger Kuno, we got together and put it together. How we met and started, it was in the Canadian Sports Magazine, and that's sort of the Canadian Beckett. And he wrote in a question about, this wrapper was this or this. And I wrote back in, and then we finally hooked up. And then we said, we should put something out. It was just that, the F word, F it, let's just go. And we finished the book in, I don't know, about 2 years, and published it in 2003. And then I kind of moved on into 2006, getting into more of the food issue, getting into more of the stuff that was available in stores. I call it merchandise, or if it was at a souvenir booth, merchandise, that kind of stuff, because this is very popular stuff. But I also added all the cards, and I did a lot of research on the history of the cards too. And then in 2015, I put out another book, the Vintage Hockey Collector's Price Guide, which was basically a lists. The pictures. Well, this second book in 2006, it's affectionately called the Playboy, because of the large pictures and very little writing. And then this one got into more correcting the lists, all the things that were wrong, because the other book didn't have the player list. It just had the price of the set. And, again, we're trying to ease into this, because who would think back in 2006, we really didn't know a lot about the hobby. It's hard to believe. The internet is somewhat new, it's coming into fruition. We're at critical mass as we turned into 2015, 16. We really started to get into it. So that's when this book came out, and I got into the list, and then I went with this one. Again, you have to say, and these are all self-published. So it took me many years to write it. I designed it all myself. I put the money forward by myself, like 25,000 and 32,000 for the other one.
Wow.
And yeah. And the wife goes, are these going to sell? And I went, yeah. Sure.
and eventually they did. So yeah. I'm curious to know, when you were coming up with that idea for the first one, you mentioned you had the connection with your co-author there, going back and forth about which wrapper, what set does this wrapper go to, and had you been doing kind of the historical research and kind of building your own portfolio of background information? Was that something that you had already had a passion for, that you were already kind of building for your own personal use, this kind of database of information about these cards and collectibles? Or was that something that was kind of purely started and inspired by that conversation?
There was no start and go date time. It was just, I saved pictures that I hadn't seen before. So I'm going to make a file for that and, put that there, because it's nice to share that with your friends, and they go, oh, you ever seen the display box for that year? No, let me say, hey, here. But if you don't save it, then you can't share it, because if it's on eBay or something, you lose that link and it goes away. And so I kept everything. And to that point, and from 2000 and prior, let's say at least 2000, everything I was saving, not even just wax and the display boxes. Then I got into the food issue, because they have cereal boxes. They have other things too that are, I like point of sale material. I've always liked the point of sale material. So that was my my headstrong way of getting into the hobby and staying persistent with it. And I would make files for every year, every decade, and allocate towards each. And then you just keep dumping stuff in each file. And eventually you have enough information to do a write-up. So then I started writing in about, I wrote for Beckett for about a year in 2008. And then the Canadian Sports magazine, I wrote for them for about 2 years in 2009-10. Just putting articles out about different things. And I got to be known as sort of more of the guy knows a lot about food issue and stuff. And I said, yeah, as much as I know about that, I know all about the cards as well, very well. But there's not much new information in cards, which kind of puts me into the last book in 2015. I started doing more research on, the tens were a time in Canada. It was all imperial tobacco. It was tobacco cards. And the 20s was all chocolate bar. And then the 30s, we went gum, and it went, straightforward with gum from then on. And then we got into stuff in the 60s and 70s where they started to really branch out. So that's where I started, and that's where I kind of finished off. And I said, okay, I'm going to, write a book and compile everything together and see where it takes us. And all the books have been sold out a long time and are quite successful and referred to. Even PSA uses as a reference point when they do stuff. And PSA calls me all the time or emails me asking me about. They're starting to ask me about baseball now because if there's a hockey item that was issued, but they also issued other sports within the same thing, I cover all those too. So they know I got it covered. So they've been asking me about, I know the hockey. What about the baseball? I said, oh, here's a couple ads. Here's the year it came out. You got it wrong. You're going to have to correct that. And, it's unfortunate for them, but there's a lot of corrections needed in the hobby with grading companies.
Do you view yourself as primarily a collector, or do you buy and sell a lot of cards too? Do you kind of have that business side of things too, or are you primarily pure collecting focused?
I guess it started out, we used to go to the Toronto Sports Card Expo, has been around since 1991. I started setting up at the expo to sell my book in 2003. So, throw a few books on the table, and this way we kind of got in early to the show. I throw a few books out, and we, a group of 4 wax pack collectors, we kind of got together, and then we just throw some extra stuff on the table. And it was more of a group meeting that we would kind of sit there all weekend because we'd be staying at other people's booths, and it got inconvenient. So we went forward from there. So I progressively stayed in there. But what turned out with the other books is I would buy these items, get good quality scans, because sometimes you ask people for a scan, and especially today, you ask somebody for a picture and they shadow with their phone, and it's just like, I can't take shadows out. I want to crop it and have a nice picture. So, I always like to own the item. Then I can measure it, feel it. Then a little bit more information, and I can pass it on to the collector. Is that fake? Is that not? Is this, and that just kept going. So yes, I did start, and then I also did start selling stuff, and I was going, hey, I'm making a few extra bucks. I'm paying for my collection. So yes, collector, historian, you could slash those like even. Seller, dealer after that. Yeah, for sure.
And so, your books in the past, they've been a valuable resource for collectors to identify what's out there, identify what they've found. But I would have a hunch that they've been also valuable for dealers and show dealers and card shop owners and things like that as well, to have a general feel for the values of some of these things and the scarcity of some of these things. When you were putting those books out, were you intending them to be used by the entire breadth of the hobby, or were you more focused on providing a resource for collectors or a resource for dealers? Did you kind of have a mindset on who the audience would be for your books?
Well, funny you asked that, Mike. My 2003 book, at the bottom of the book, I have written by collectors for collectors. So that was to answer your question. I wrote for the collectors. The dealers used to. There's nothing wrong with this, and maybe it's out of innocence that they would tell stories that they got from wherever they acquired the item from. So they would tell a story, and I would go, that doesn't even really make sense. It sounds great when you're selling because it over embellishes the sale, right? And I said, no, we got to get rid of that, so that's why it was written for collectors. And when I did publish the books, especially the second one, dealers wouldn't even show collectors what it was because it was like exclusive information. And I had a couple guys tell me, they contacted me and said, yeah, the guy wouldn't even show me your book. He goes, what was that? They said, I don't know, nothing, don't worry, put it away. Because they used to take advantage of a lot of collectors at that time. Some dealers, they would say, yeah, that's worth this, and they wouldn't want to show them too much information because they held most of the information for themselves. The hobbyists help the hobby, regardless. Doesn't matter if you're a collector, dealer, whatever you are, we're all selfish in our own right. I want that card more than you do, Mike. It's depending on who's willing to pay for it more. And so if we know that going in, we can say, okay, and this became selfish because that information was coveted by people themselves. They wouldn't, hand that out freely. But the books were available for, whatever you want to pay for them, and they're out there to get, and you could do your own research. And that's what really fortified the book sales, is more people. Like, I showed up at the expo with all the books, the second book in 2006. I think I sold 40, and I was dejected. I made 2,000. I said, wow, this is crazy. And it's funny how word of mouth, for the next 6 months, I was shipping out 30 a week. It was just like never stop. And it was more and more and more because everybody found out and word of mouth got around. We didn't have the internet. We had it the way it is today, where everything's shared on every platform. It was definitely different back then. And there was a lot of people who just went to small shows or what have you. So they didn't even have the internet. So it did finally took time. And then I sold out. Now, actually, to get this book, I think it's probably be about $200 to find it now. It's become a collectible in itself.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That has to feel good. We just wrapped up the fall version of the expo, of the Sports Card Expo up in the Toronto area, and I know you got a chance to attend. Was there anything in particular that you found for your collection at the expo this fall?
I find for other people a lot of times I'm finding information. I think that is first and foremost today than it is for myself. I get the pleasure out of documenting it, and it has overtaken it. So it's the intangible part of it that I find is collectible. I'm collecting information. Having the items, yes. I have a beautiful maple leaf room, but I've reached that critical mass stage again. And it's like I have so much stuff, it's very hard to find that one piece. So I'm just buying stuff that looks like deals. And it's very easy for me to walk around because all the knowledge I have, I go, yeah, okay, I'll take that. It's just like, because a lot of people, we're not talking about cards here, basically. We're talking about most of the food issue or even food issue related cards. A lot of people don't know that series or what have you, especially a lot of dealers who don't really, specify hockey collectibles. They're more into the general collectibles. And then there's the merchandise side, which is, sticks and pucks and gloves and all that other stuff. So the hobby's in three places. It's the cards, and then you have the food issue and merchandise, and then you have the memorabilia, which is, the collectors of, skates and what have you. And it's a different, very rare is it all three that you collect, because you have to have a lot of knowledge spread out between two. But the food issue, I would say, and the cards pretty much are as close as you can get.
Very cool. Well, you recently, we've been talking about the books that you had put out in the past to document and capture this history for collectors. Well, you recently released kind of a new app and website that is focused on this same idea. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me about this new website and new app.
Okay, well, it started with my friend Andy, who's a CFL friend and collector. We've been sharing information because CFL and hockey are very similar in a lot of senses, but they're both Canadian, predominantly Canadian, and we share vintage information and what have you. So we've been friends for a long time. I put out my last book in 2015, and Andy asked me, he says, because Andy is a code writer, so he does apps for a living and stuff like that. So he says, I'm working on an app and working on it for 2 years. Would you like to get involved in it? And he goes, CFL is not enough to do an app. He says, I need a good base, and hockey would be great. It's small enough and big enough at the same time. And I said no at that time. I said, no, thank you, Andy. I'm sorry. I just did the book. I just want a break, because it's a lot of production time, and people don't realize when you're self-published how much work you have to do. And he says, okay, no problem. But it wasn't 6, 8 months later, I just said, Andy, let's do it, because you keep finding new information. You go, man, I'd love to share that. I should put that in there. And when you have unlimited space, like you do with an app, you can write as much as you want. You're not contrived to a paragraph
Yep.
in a book, and you're looking at saving pages and balancing out how much the book is going to cost, because every extra page you add beyond is 8 pages you have to add. That's just the way the math works. It's like, yeah, okay, it's 32 pages, it's 160. Where does it end? And then your cost goes way up. So started out as 25,000, now I'm at 32. Where do I stop? And I can keep going. And then you have to justify which pieces really justify a page in the book. And that's why I really never went into the 90s, because you could do a book on just 90 to 95, just the amount just on cereal boxes, almost, or craft dinner or what have you. There's so much in that space. I don't know if I have enough life in me to even get to it, because I'm still not even finished adding the stuff to the app. And the app is, it's 1910 to 1990, everything hockey, food issue, and merchandise, and things that haven't really ever been documented before, even in my other books, because I had a long span in between 2023 and 2015 when I wrote the last book. So there was a lot of information that and the other stuff that I've been holding that I never really put in the books that I didn't think I could justify. Now I can just throw it in there. And so we've multiplied times 10 the information with not let alone pictures, every picture of everything. It's the write-ups, the detailed information. And I think that going forward, the app should be very successful if you're really looking. And the things it can do, the app, you can save your sets. You can see, you can walk into a show and go bang, bang. Oh, I need that card. Dang, it's all listed on the app. The app does everything that a collector needs to have.
So it's got information about the sets. It's got the checklists of the sets. It's got a collection feature too, for you can catalog your own collection of what you've got on there. You said 1910 to 1990.
Yeah, is hockey. The CFL goes from 1910, I think. I'm not sure if it goes that far back, but probably even earlier, actually. And it goes right up to current times. Okay. Because CFL is smaller and manageable. Where hockey, 90s to 2000, oh my, that's a big book. Yeah. If it was a book, I'm just saying.
And so if somebody goes and gets the app, is it all, when you say hockey cards, is it Canadian issue only, or does it have the U.S. issues and the U.S. regional food issues as well as the Canadian?
Oh yeah. Well, most of a lot of the merchandise is American issued. A lot of companies in the U.S. would produce hockey items, and a lot of them we really didn't get up here. So it's very Tops and O-Pee-Chee focused. Both companies. I have great history, resources, and knowledge about those companies. Both of them, and it also goes into, like I said, a lot of the merchandise and even food issue came out of there. And I really want to spread out a little bit further. I'm on that edge. I'd like to get into regional. 1967, when the league expanded, you had 6 new American teams, and a lot of those collectors are really coming of age now. And back then, they really promoted. They did a lot of special promotions to get their teams started. To keep the, Toronto Maple Leafs been around since 1927. They didn't have anything to prove, but in '67, Philadelphia, Minnesota, St. Louis, all those teams had to, really push and they have these great little regional issues, and I'm finding out more and more about them. I already know quite a lot about them, but I really need to get into the finite details. I do want to add that, but I just want to get through, keep on, because we're going to add for the next 2 years. Just the amount of information will be never ending. And I do want to, because we do all the Parkhurst hockey, I want to put all the Parkhurst non-sports in there too, just to satisfy that, and as much as I know about hockey, I'm actually non-sports Canadian for the most part. I'm pretty much a historian at that point too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see that expand. We've been talking about it, but I don't think we've mentioned the name of it yet. So what is the name of the app, and where can people find it?
Well, this is the logo. And this is the name of the app. It's called Needuum, Needuum. It is a takeoff from, kids sitting around going, got him. Needuum. Needuum is the big word, not got him. So, even if you got him, you still need him. Yeah. It's my little tagline.
And then what, how much is it? How much does it cost? Is it a subscription? Is it a one-time fee? How's that work for somebody to be able to kind of fully utilize it?
Yeah, because it's going to grow. It can't just be a book one time. If we just gave you that little bit, said, okay, that's whatever, a book value. And then we keep adding to it. You got to pay for the rest of the books, it would be another book, another book. So we got it down to basic cost of it's every 6 months, $29.99, reoccurring, but you can cancel at any time, of course. But 6 months at a time, so $5 a month. And with the amount of compiled information, like I said, that's basically a book, and we'll be adding almost another book in every 6 months. Amount of information, if you do a comparative, just the new information, the other stuff that I did not add, the new stuff that I have found, the updates, the new pricing. I can keep going. It's just a nonstop, perpetual thing, which is great for me, because making that decision to do a book, as you see, from 2003, then I got 2006, then it went to 2015. You're sitting there going, that's a long time in between, because it's an arduous journey, writing a book, designing the book, and putting yourself out there. It takes a lot to really say, hey, I'm doing this. And I think the big deterrent in our hobby is that it's easy to do not to take anything away from anybody, but it's easy to do a blog, turn it on, talk some stuff, but try to get down and write, and then people listen to you, and you are the voice of the information. So I have to be right, and I'm the hardest critic. The glass is not even half full; it's empty every time. It's actually got less in it. If you can physically do that, it's just like no. Let's start from scratch on everything, and going forward, I think that serves the collector to the best. I'm nothing special. I always say for my diploma, I graduated grade 12. I got 55 in English, horrible writer, 95 in math, so good detailed oriented person. But it's amazing. I've written over 75, maybe close to 100 articles published, and 3 books. So something's, I guess, life experience, and I get better with writing every year. It's not an easy. I can't sit down like a typical writer and write something in an hour. I write down the base information, then I try to make a little storyline, then I try to add little key words and change it up a little more verbs. And so it takes me about like 4 hours what a writer would take an hour to do. So
sure. Is the utility between what you can find on the website and the app the same?
Oh no, there's stuff I'd almost say for what you're trying to look for on the web, we have at least 50% more that you can find that's in the app that you'll never even see or ever even seen before.
Even on the Needuum, on the Needuum website?
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yes. Yeah. On the Needuum site, you will see more than you in one collective place. Sure, you can do some back history and go the Wayback Machine or whatever, but you're not going to get a quality picture of anything. Well, you can. Like the cards are all easy. We all know what Mickey Mantle looks like. We all know the cards, but it's the key information. It's the wrappers and how many variations and the display box and the point of sale material. There's so many other issues and pictures, and that's where Needuum is where you need them.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to kind of get to, right? Because I'm someone who prefers to do my cataloging, my research, and all of that type of thing on a computer, on an actual computer screen, and utilize maybe a website to be able to do that. The app would be great for a situation if I am, like you said, at a show and I'm trying to do those types of things. But that's what I was just trying to make sure I understood. If you decided to subscribe to Needuum, is that kind of full functioning access at needuum.com as well as the app, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, the platform was built on 3 different. It was built on Android. It's built on the iPhone and a website. So a lot of guys go, I don't even use my phone. I said, we got a website. Yeah, works the same. Yep. All the same information is there. So if you sign up with a website and you have an app, just download the app, put your username in. Functions both ways.
Perfect. Yep, that's what I just wanted to.
The utility is across the board. It has to be, at this point going forward. So,
in the past, in your print books, you kind of also referred to them as a price guide and gave a general view of prices. Is that a component of Needuum as well?
It's a major component of Needuum. A lot of people, it's one thing. I was talking about the trading card database. Unfortunately, they don't have prices of things. So it's nice to see the item, like identify it if it is there, It's like, oh, that's great. So what's the price? I was looking on eBay. I couldn't find it. I was looking on the internet. Nobody really kind of gave me. I was looking at Worth Point, trying to find finish. Oh, I got to join Worth Point to get a price. And that just gives you so many prices because Worth Point doesn't even go back. I've sold hundreds of items on eBay over the years, and my items aren't even coming up in their searches, and I'm doing detailed searches, and I'm going, well, where? So this, I know for a fact they're only giving you a percentage of it's not worth, and it's not worth any point of buying anything or Worth Point. They're not giving you enough value for your dollar, unfortunately. Where I give more, well, I'm looking for giving you more value than we ever receive in money. I think going forward, because being a writer, what do I make, a penny an hour? We divide it out. It's not a money making thing. It's sort of something that we, I love waking up to a treasure hunt every morning. Like, who doesn't? I like, honestly, and that's the biggest part of the hobby. But going forward, it's just it's a fun way to enjoy life and look forward to getting mail and going to the shows and associating with your friends and people you met and people you haven't met. And it's a very it's camaraderie is amazing part of the hobby. And I go back to the expo. It's not about always what you're going to find there. It's really meeting your friends and maybe showing them stuff or talking stuff, talking crap. We just have some fun together. And some guys have been doing it for 25, 30 years. So
very nice, very nice. So before we go today, I want to give you the opportunity to, let people know anything else about the site that you wanted and the app that you wanted to make sure people knew, and then also a chance to let people know where they can find it and where they can connect with you.
Okay, well, as I said, Needuum is based on hockey and a CFL at this point going forward. You will find all the listings for every hockey set and prices for each, for food issue, and a lot or most of the merchandise. Also with the CFL. CFL actually, it's quite surprising how much CFL stuff, because I was roaming through it. I know a little bit, and then you just go, wow, there's that much. I can't believe it. CFL was around even before the NFL, right? So they've been around since 1860, something like that. So there is quite a history there. Anybody who joins Needuum, I see, it's really hard to tell people about Needuum saying, hey, they got prices, and people go, oh, I got eBay for that. But no, when you look at tough items, good luck, so I give a happy medium between my history and all the research I have done. So it does help them there. And going forward, I think people will realize the amount of information that's written. I think you can't sell somebody and going, oh, the write-ups are like, great, they're 7 paragraphs. And they're going, yeah, so it's like, but no, really, if you delve into my write-ups, you're just going to see, like my articles that I write for Hobby News. It's same thing. It's detailed oriented information. There's no fluff. I can't write fluff. I got 55 in English. I'm not a fluff writer. Just the facts, man.
Very cool. And where can people find you and find the app?
They can find it. They can download it. It's in the App Store, and it's at needuum.com. HTTP needuum.com, and Android, you can download it through them too. It's available on every platform. So just go to Needuum, Needuum.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Bobby. I really appreciate you joining today, and definitely encourage people out there to go and check out the app.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it.